everyone, it's me, Jess. Different video sort of content today, specifically requested by my husband. So hi, Chris. When I asked him what sort of videos he might want to watch for me, because obviously he doesn't really care about my Project Pan or my fragrance oil videos, although he tolerates all of my random bottles on the vanity quite well. One of the things that he asked was maybe I could talk about the things that I've been watching on BritBox. So for people who don't know what BritBox is, it's a subscription sort of Amazon channel that you purchase through their streaming Prime Video service. And you pay a monthly fee, you get access to content, and they have both older shows, TV shows, and movies, but they also have some original content, kind of like Netflix does. And I've really been enjoying some of the shows and catching up on some old shows, so I thought that I'd talk about just a couple of them. Obviously, I'm not going to give like a total review of everything, but we'll go over the ones that are really important. So what was the show that kind of got me to fork over the monthly fee for BritBox to begin with? And that was Are You Being Served? So it is a show from, I believe, the 70s, maybe really late 60s, about a department store. So there's a men's and women's section in a department store called Grace Brothers, and they both live on the same floor, and there's a guy called a floor walker who is kind of a foreign concept to US watchers. Like, I don't remember, even when I was growing up in like the 80s, there being a person that just kind of strolled around the floor asking people what they needed help with. I remember individual sales associates doing that, but the idea that there was a person who was kind of supervisor, but also their entire job was to direct people to their correct department, is a really interesting concept to me. The show is a product of its time. So if there are jokes about sexual harassment and there are jokes about different minorities, but I think that given the time, some aspects of it are quite progressive. And it's something that my sister and I used to watch because it used to be run on our PBS station during the day. It's something that my sister and I used to watch after school, that was wittier than like cartoons or the Dukes of Hazzard or something like that. So if I'm in a bad mood, it's a really great show to be comfortably nostalgic with. Even though I actually don't have any memories of that. My memories are of watching the show, not of living in that era. There are some great actors in it. John Inman plays Mr. Humphreys. Molly Sugden plays Mrs. Slocum. They're both brilliant comedic actors. So give it a shot if you're interested. Like I said, if you're very sensitive, it might be a bit problematic for some people. But I think that if you take it in context, it's quite enjoyable. Chris and I love watching British murders. We prefer more lighthearted murders. So if you remember back in the video that I was talking about, like kind of like dream subscription boxes, one of the things that we both really enjoy is a cozy murder mystery. And for some reason, British writers love making TV shows out of these things. So when we started our BritBox subscription, one of the things that was promoted to us was Shakespeare and Hathaway. So it's Lou Shakespeare, who's a hairdresser, gets into business with Hathaway, I forget his first name, and he has a lovely male assistant who is both an actor and goes in undercover all the time. They're solving murder mysteries within Stratford-upon-Avon. It's really great. It's modern, even though it's set in a really old-timey town. So it's fun to watch the background stuff and like realize there's like a lot of architecture and lots of Shakespeare references, and it's a really great show. I'm very sad that we very quickly watched the 2 seasons that are available. because they're only 5 episodes each. So, or maybe they're 10. We watched them all very quickly. It's one of those shows that you can watch on like a Saturday or a Sunday when you don't know what else to do. And we ended up calling them Shaky and Hathy. So that's one show. Another show that I've watched a lot is Death in Paradise. Again, murder mystery. English detective in a Caribbean nation. Somehow, even on this small island that's mythical, I believe. I don't think it's a real island. Lots of people die or almost die. And there's been a series. I think there are 4 or 5 detectives in now. They all have different baggage. They all have different life stories. Sometimes there's love interest. Sometimes there's not. But again, it's quite an enjoyable show. And I believe that some seasons of Death in Paradise are on Netflix if you have a subscription to that and you don't want to pay more. So there's 2 shows. Yes, 2 other shows that I want to talk about. The first one, I've only seen 2 episodes because they're not releasing the entire series. They're doing it on a weekly basis. I think so that people continue their subscription month to month. It's McDonald and Dodds. So again, it's a murder mystery. Young, black, detective in charge, older, white detective underneath her. His boss is trying to get him to retire early. She's coming into a smaller town environment from a fast-paced sort of like London gang setting. So they're figuring each other out. So there's workplace tension plus sort of like politics overarching. But they each have different perspectives on how to solve crimes. And some of I've only seen 2 episodes, but some of the sort of like the puzzling of the episodes has been really clever, and I've very much enjoyed it. And then the last show that I've been watching is a BritBox original, and that's called Wild Bill. So it's a modern day crime show. It is not funny. It's not lighthearted. It's very serious. It stars Rob Lowe. The acting is, I think, really great, and it's very nice to see a variety of sort of just a really great diversity, even though to be honest, there's not a ton of diversity. But there's a lot of accents, there's a lot of different character types, there's a lot of different body types. He is I forget what his rank is. I'm really bad with like, oh, this is officer, whatever. He comes in, he's recruited to take over a police department in a small town. Presumably he has been brought in to like cut jobs. So he's being set up to not be a great guy. He has a young daughter, well, not young, like 13-14-year-old daughter that he's brought with him. So there's cultural tensions. He's still trying to figure out his relationship with his daughter. He's kind of set up to be in a very confrontational relationship with his coworkers. Plus, there seems to be kind of like an organized crime figure within the community. It's good. It's dramatic. Like, there are a couple of times that I'm like, ooh, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, and again, it's one of those settings where there's this very small town, and yet there's a lot of things that go wrong, and you kind of wonder how these things are sustainable. It's very much like Murder, She Wrote in all of, like, that's kind of the common thread throughout all of these things. But if you just want to watch an episode, it's a really great show. I think that there's high production value, so there's some really great like landscape shots. They clearly put a lot of money into this show. It's really enjoyable. I think I'm 5 or 6 episodes in. Again, it's being released on a weekly basis, and I don't know, to be honest, I don't know if they're going to be at some point released in bulk. Like, if I cancel and I come back like 2 months later, will they all be there? Or if like Amazon's smart enough to know, hey, you've signed up, you only get 1 episode a week, and we know when you signed up, so that you can't like start watching them, cancel them, and then come back and watch the rest of them. Because that might be something that I'm thinking about. But there's a ton of other stuff on here. There's some other comedy shows. Chris loves Keeping Up Appearances. Not crime related. No murders in that show whatsoever. And I agree, it is a fantastic show. Also, one of those shows that used to be on PBS. I'm trying to remember if it was on in the evenings or on the weekends. But when Chris and I first moved in together, we didn't have cable. We just had like an antenna and a TV, and we lived in a really cheap apartment. And so we'd watch just like whatever was on the air, and it was one of the shows that we would watch while we sat like on our couch that was on our little piece of like carpet that we bought from like Lowe's, and like huddled around like the space heater in winter. So it's but yes, the premise of Keeping Up Appearances, which I highly recommend because it's just a really good comedic show, is there's a lady who, her name's Hyacinth Bouquet, but her last name is spelled Bucket. And she has a adoring and very patient, but kind of downtrodden husband. And she has a neighbor, Elizabeth, who is startled by her, and she has attained a very comfortable middle-class existence, but she has sort of some aspirations to be of a class above where she really is. And her family is much more modest and somewhat of an embarrassment to her. And she's famous for her candlelight suppers, where she likes to invite all the people that she feels are important within her area. And there's lots of hijinks as she tries to convince people that she really is fancier than she is. So that's my video. I hope you enjoy it. It's very casual. I'm wearing sweatpants because the weather's cooled off. I obviously did no makeup for this video whatsoever. But it's definitely something that I like talking about and I like watching. And if there are, what's your favorite British show? Tell me down below. We'll have a conversation. And I think I'm going to start trying to come up with some topics for some videos, maybe just like a sort of a fireside chat perhaps as the weather gets cooler. We'll give it a try and see how it goes. So I hope you're all having a good time. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll talk to you guys later.